Okay, you should have just handed in a bell ringer assessment, which your teachers are grading and probably going to get you some feedback on. Just showing you some of the tests that are coming up next year, and I just want to make sure you understand, especially Chapter 1, which is usually the hardest one, that I think you're more than prepared for it. Terms, we understand that those are those four things. You just got to learn how to answer it. You remember that like terms are the terms that go together. All the other stuff that's going on, again, you'll learn there. We learn how to do this. Quotient means divided, so it's 8 over x. 3 less than, remember less than means switch and all that stuff. 5 times the sum. Again, all those words that we've seen, you will be asked to make your own verbal expression, but again, that's something that comes with it. You then have this one, which you'll have to know how to kind of work with, but we've worked with this question before. We've seen it, so therefore, as long as you practice it, you should be in good shape. We've ordered numbers, but again, that's something you'll practice. You have your plotting on this test, which is, again, making sure you know where to put these things. We have our 1.25s, our 1.75s. They're asking about a solution to the answer, which means, hey, don't we know how to solve those already? So that's another one. You have another one where they'll pretty much say it rises 3, so you start with 15. If it rises 3 plus 3, drop 7, minus 7, and so on. That's your order of operations with positives and negatives. This is a translation question. Look at that, another one. Translate. I think we talked about this kind of question yesterday when we were doing that, so you've seen that before too. This is also something you can figure out how to do once you're paying attention. But what I'm trying to point out here as you look at this other one, order of operations. This is actually pretty easy, but we're not going to talk about it. I'll save it for your teacher. That, I think you remember, is a number that multiplies by itself to be 36. But again, basic numbers. This is why you want to learn this, because there is no calculator on this test, but so you'll need to learn it. But again, you're already in position to answer every last one of these things, which means that you should be able to work your way through. Don't forget 2 to the 5th means 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2. But again, outside of that, distributive property, we did this. We've seen that. We've seen these. I think we started the year with those, but again, that's just to show you your Chapter 1 test, again, really isn't that bad. Your Chapter 2 test, I believe, is 26 questions, but your first 14 questions, we've solved that. We've solved that. We know how to do this. We know how to do that. And you actually do get a calculator on this, so you'll actually have a calculator for that. That we know how to do. We know how to do that one. This one, this one, this one. We've seen everything we need. In this case, you would put your like terms together and then go here. You subtract x from both sides. Here, again, you can either multiply everything by 4 or just go from there. 12, again, distribute first. 13, cross multiply. 14, cross multiply. So you're in good shape as long as you've learned what you were supposed to learn in terms of the work that we've been putting in. So just make sure to make the most out of this stuff. And again, when you go to your A class, again, most of the time, you're passing/failing. I'm not really talking to the students who pass all the time. I'm talking to the students who think they fail all the time. Your F in a class typically is because you start out like crap. If you start out like you actually want to pass it and you start out working, typically you start out well and then you're already on a good swing and then everything kind of works out. So just try to make sure you're ready for that next year. But outside of that, at this point, we've officially reviewed 11 of the 20 questions on your assessment tomorrow. Again, it doesn't mean you haven't seen the information, just means we haven't officially brought it back to memory. So today what we're going to do is look at each type and discuss the necessary thoughts and steps to improve your chances of success. So we have the problem where you combine like terms with fractions. So again, you might want to grab your calculator just to make sure you've got it. But if you saw this, we are supposed to be able to do 1/3 plus 7 on our own. We are supposed to do 2/5 minus 4 on our own, but why would we do it if they're not checking our work? What you can do instead is recognize that 1/3 and 7 gets added. So you simply type 1/3 plus 7, because that says plus 7, which gives us 22 over 3 with an x on it. We know we're going to take these two and put together, so you put your 2/5 minus 4 to get negative 18 over 5, so it's minus 18 over 5y. Now don't forget, if any of those were mixed numbers, then you simply convert it by hitting that button that we talked about and doing what we need to do there. But there shouldn't be an issue with that, in my opinion, especially if you've paid attention and you've been working on trying to make sure you learn how to use this calculator. You also have the name and the angle that we didn't directly talk about, but it's a simple topic as long as you remember that your name should trace the angle. So going through these names, which of these are legitimate? Is P and M okay? We'll trace P to N to M, and notice how I'm jumping off the angle, so that's not it. What about MPN? From M to P to N. Does work. What about MNP? Well, once you go from M to N, you're jumping off of that part, so that doesn't work. PMN. Once you go P to M to N, notice you just jumped off. Nope. What about NPM? Let's see. N to P to M. Does work. Does angle N work? Nope, because that's not the vertex. Does angle P work? Yep, because that's the vertex. Does angle M work? Nope, because that's not the vertex. We've covered this. Just make sure you remember it. Make sure to take your time. Again, it's really not that bad of a process tomorrow. Finding the missing angle. Again, our work this quarter should have helped us a lot with this type of problem. We should know that all angles in a triangle add up to 180. After that, we just have to remember how to use the information. So when we're doing this, remember what you want to do is figure out what these two add up to be. And again, you have a calculator tomorrow, so 65 plus 53 equals 118. So these two make 118. And we know that all three should be 180, so we just do 180 minus whatever is there. So 180, that's why we worked on our supplementary thing, minus 118, which is 62 degrees. That's what this has to be. How do I know? Because 62 plus 65 plus 53 equals, there's a number we're looking for. All right. But in some situations, you can't do it that way because doesn't look right. But remember, when you see this, you simply write down what we said. The sum of these is 180. Sum means add. So we should be able to put 3x plus x plus 64 equals 180. We should be able to put our like terms together because we've practiced that. We should know from doing our two-step equations that we subtract 64. Well, that's a bigger number than what we're used to. But we do know how to do 180 minus 64, which is 116. We then divide by 4. Again, we have a calculator there tomorrow, which is 29. And just to show you, x is 29, so 64 plus 3 times 29, because that's what x is, plus 29, because that's what x is, and look at the number that we get, which is 180. You don't have to check that, but again, I think we should know how to set that up. You got three angles that add up to 180. In this situation, it's easy because we had nothing but numbers. When it's more than what we're used to, just make sure you list them all out to equal 180 and then do the algebra necessary. That's it. That's all you're being asked to do. What about the parallel lines thing? Well, what we learned is that parallel lines create situations where angles are either congruent or supplementary. Congruent meaning the same, supplementary means they adds up to 180. This is actually going to allow you to just think through the next couple of problems. Remember, our common sense that we used was if both angles are acute, then they're congruent. If both angles look obtuse, then they're probably congruent. And if they're not, that means they're supplementary because those are the only two options you have. So, if you're looking at angle 1 and angle 3, could they be congruent? Let's see, 1 is obtuse, it's bigger than 90. 3 is acute, it's smaller than 90. No, these two would be, if anything, supplementary, sorry, forgive my writing, which means they add to be 180, which means these two things together should equal 180. What about 4 and 9? Well, 4 is blatantly obtuse because look at that angle. 9 is acute because look at that, it's smaller than 90, which means no, these two should also be supplementary. What about 7 and 3? Let's see, 7 is obtuse, 3 is acute. These also would be no, they're supplementary. But 7 should be congruent to 4, should be congruent to 1, just like it should also be congruent to 2 because that's also obtuse, just like 3, 9, 8, and 5. Anything that has an A by it should all be the same in this picture. Anything that has an O by it should all be the same in that picture. So using that ability to compare types of angles should allow you to eliminate answers that don't make sense, which is the main thing. Sometimes it does require a bit of algebra. So one of the questions you're going to see is going to say something like this. X is 3, find x if angle 3 is 30, so put a little 30 up here. And angle 2 is x plus 30, so I'm going to put x plus 30 there. And what I know about angle 2 and angle 3 is that they're not the same. This is acute, this is obtuse, which means that these two things are supplementary. What does that mean? It means that this plus this should equal 180, and there's our algebra. You now put the 30 and 30 together to get x plus 60 equals 180. You then subtract your 60 the way we were taught, getting x equals 120, and that would be the answer that we're looking for. It is not really a tough situation. You just want to make sure, again, that you're paying attention and using your head. Slow down, think through it, and go from there. But outside of angle addition, subtraction, and putting points on a graph, you've definitely seen more than enough to perform well tomorrow. Please just make sure you remember that this thing is a decent sized assessment grade for you. And again, the order that you should do is first do everything you can easily do. So if you're looking at a problem and you know it's going to be tough, I'd skip it for the first part and do anything you can easily do. Then do the ones you know but take a little bit of work, and then go through and try to go through the ones where you can eliminate bad options. Remember, it's multiple choice, so the answers are in front of you. So what you want to do is look and say that answer doesn't make sense and cross it out. This answer doesn't make sense and cross it out. And I understand it's on a computer, but can't I on my piece of paper write down A, B, C, and D, look at my options and say, well, B doesn't work, and just cross out B, and then say C doesn't work, and then I cross out C, and then say A doesn't make sense and cross out A, and then know that D is my answer. I understand that it's on a computer, but you should still be able to use the elimination way because you do at least have paper in front of you. And if you don't, raise your hand and ask for scratch paper, because chances are your teacher meant to give it to you. It does work best if you want to be, because you want to be in a good mood when working through the problems that you answer, that you know how to do. If you allow yourself to get frustrated and then you get to an easy question, it doesn't usually work because you're not thinking clearly. But either way, I believe we put in enough work to do well. Tomorrow, I think that you're in good shape to pass the rest of your math classes. But again, just be sure to ask any last questions that you have today during classwork. But outside of that, good luck, and get ready for this assessment tomorrow, and talk to you later.